So, looking at the story of Anna, Samuel, and Eli again this morning, something struck my heart that this story is beginning to look like it wasn't really Anna's story. It wasn't really Anna's story. It was more of Eli and Samuel's story. And we see how the plan played out. We see how we see God's intentionality in this story. We see how God moved in this story. And from the later story of Eli, you begin to see why God had to delay Anna's pregnancy. And we can also get to ask ourselves one question. And the question is, why did God decide to, was there no one worthy to be a priest after Eli? Hmm? Around that time, there was no one that God had to orchestrate the birth of a child, like to prepare the birth of a whole new person who was going to take over Eli's position. And then we begin to go back to the, if we now go back to Hannah, we begin to see why God had to delay Hannah's prayer. And because if we begin to ask ourselves, was it that Hannah never met with Eli before that time? Or was it that God had a bigger plan? And I think we know our answer. It would be that God had a bigger plan for this whole thing that was happening. So there was, because God knows everyone's heart. So there was a man who is a priest, who is called Eli. He had sons that he couldn't control. He had sons that were already going wild and haywire. He couldn't control them. That's the word. He couldn't control them. But God was seeing all of this, and God knew there has to be a change in hand. Like, this one cannot be the one that will carry the legacy of the future plan, of the grand plan that I have, which is Jesus. Are we seeing that? So God had to delay Anna's prayer, because we can say for sure that Anna has been going to Shiloh to pray to God to give her a baby. But because it wasn't yet time, because Samuel's birth was an orchestration from God. Samuel's birth was in the design grand master plan that God had for the whole mankind. So it wasn't yet time. He couldn't walk. Samuel could not come according to the time of human being. Do you understand? He couldn't come according to the time of human being. Samuel had to come in the time that God had proposed for him to come. Because it wasn't about Hannah not having a child. I don't know if you are getting me. It wasn't about Hannah not having a child. It was about God raising up a priest who was going to anoint David. Are we getting it? Who was a priest that was a priest directly from him, who was going to anoint David. And why it seemed as though Anna gave a child birth to God, it was actually God's plan. Do we get it? It was actually God's plan that Samuel was going to live the whole of his life in God's temple. I don't know if you get that. When we look at this story, you can see some facts here. Number one fact is God's time is never man's time. God's time can never be man's time. That's number one thing. Number two thing is, sometimes it may seem as though you are praying to God for something and God is not doing it. What we humans don't understand is If God had proposed to you, that you are a servant of God, you are a child of God, then your plan cannot work for you. It is God's plan that will work for you. That means the question is, are you in God's plan? Do we get it? So sometimes it may seem as though there are delays. Everybody around you, they're making it. Everybody around you, they have a child, they do this, they do that. And then it seems as though God has forgotten you. God has not forgotten you. The point is, you are in the master plan of God. You are in the master plan of God. And the best thing you can do is to wait on God. Because it's not really about you. It's about that master plan. It's about the plan that God has proposed. Because we see the life of Samuel and how, even though it seemed as though it was Hannah giving back her child to God, it was in God's plan all along to delay Hannah's pregnancy, to use Hannah to bring up a child who was going to be a priest and who was going to be thoroughly obedient to him and who was going to take the place. It's actually funny because when you look at this story, you see the way God is very patient. God is very, very patient. He doesn't rush things. He doesn't rush things at all. Because tell me how God planned for Samuel's birth. And when Eli saw Hannah, I'm very sure he must have been around maybe 60 something years old. Do you get? So he has lived his life, and then there's a delay. God is saying, no, Hannah, it's not yet time for you to have this child. The child I want to have through you, the first child I want to have through you, is the one that I want to succeed or take the place of Eli. Because Eli have sinned against me and his heart is no longer pure. So nobody around Eli was worthy to take the position of Eli again. Nobody around him was able to take that position because he's not the only priest, but nobody was able to take the position of Eli. God had to orchestrate the birth of a child that was going to be in the temple of God from his tender age. So this one, there's nothing like there's nothing like the word has corrupted him or anything. This child's life was orchestrated to be lived in the house of God, because God had to use him for a grand. He had a part to play in a grand plan that God had. So we are going away with two things. The first is a question: are you in the grand master plan of God? And the second is, how patient can you be when the Lord is telling you to wait? Wait on me. I say, wait on me. I hope we have been blessed. Thank you. Have a nice day.